Muscular virgin CEO was forced into fixed marriage until the wedding night turned into a love story he'd never seen before. She had saved countless lives in the ICU, but couldn't save the one that mattered most until a phone call offered her a deal with the devil himself. Have you ever felt trapped between impossible choices? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. He had built a billion-dollar empire on discipline and control until the day his own board of directors held a gun to his head and demanded he marry a stranger in 72 hours. Roman Whitaker gripped his coffee cup so hard his knuckles turned white. The Manhattan skyline stretched beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, but all he could see was the contract sliding across the mahogany table toward him. The IPO is worth $3 billion. His father's voice cut through the silence like a blade. But investors want stability. Family values. A wife. I'm 36 years old. Roman's jaw clenched. I'll choose my own wife when I'm ready. Board member Harrison Chen leaned forward, his smile cold as winter. The market research is clear. Single CEOs are seen as unstable. Risky investments. Roman had spent 15 years building Apex Fitness Tech from a garage startup into a Wall Street giant. Every decision calculated, every risk measured. But this felt like selling his soul. You have 72 hours, his father continued, sliding a thick manila envelope across the table. We've already identified suitable candidates, all from good families, all willing to sign the necessary agreements. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air thinner. Roman's chest tightened as he stared at the faces around the table. Men who'd helped build his empire, now holding it hostage. Have you ever had your life's biggest decision made for you by others? Tell me in the comments. Would you choose love or money if forced to pick? His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. Reporters outside. They know about the board meeting. Roman closed his eyes, remembering last month's corporate party. Supermodel Angelica Price had cornered him in the elevator, her hands sliding up his chest, lips inches from his. He'd step back then, just like he always did, just like he'd done for 36 years. There's something else, his father said quietly. The woman we've chosen, she's different. The file opened to reveal a photograph that made Roman's breath catch. Dark skin that seemed to glow even in the hospital lighting. Eyes that held stories he suddenly wanted to read. Aaliyah Brooks, 28, ICU nurse, Atlanta, Georgia. She's perfect, his father said with finality. Roman stared at the beautiful stranger who would either save his company or destroy everything he believed about destiny. The woman who had no idea her life was about to collide with his in the most impossible way. As thunder rolled across the city, Roman made a decision that would change two lives forever. But first, he had to find her. She had saved countless lives in the ICU, but couldn't save the one that mattered most until a phone call offered her a deal with the devil himself. Aaliyah Brooks peeled off her scrubs at 3 a.m., exhaustion weighing on her shoulders like lead. The Atlanta General ICU had claimed another 12-hour shift, and tomorrow would bring another, and another after that. Her phone buzzed against the metal locker. Mom's ringtone. Hey, Mama. Aaliyah pressed the phone to her ear, already knowing what she'd hear. The pain's getting worse, baby. Her mother's voice was barely a whisper. Doctor wants to try that new treatment we talked about. The treatment that cost more than Aaliyah made in 3 years. The treatment their insurance had already denied twice. I'll figure something out, Aaliyah said, staring at her reflection in the locker room mirror. Dark circles under her eyes. Stress lines that hadn't been there 6 months ago. I always do, but this time felt different. This time, there was nowhere left to turn. She thought about Marcus, her ex-fiancé who'd promised her forever, then disappeared 2 weeks before their Chicago wedding when she'd refused to sleep with him. I'm saving myself for marriage, she'd said. Then maybe you should find someone else, he'd replied. The break room coffee tasted like burnt dreams. Through the rain-streaked windows, Atlanta's skyline blurred into watercolor smudges of light and shadow. Aaliyah pulled her cardigan tighter, fighting memories of Marcus's hands on her body, the way he'd made her feel beautiful until she'd said no. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Miss Brooks? This is Catherine Whitaker from New York. I have a proposition that could solve all your financial problems. What would you sacrifice for family? Have you ever felt trapped between impossible choices? Share your story below. The woman's voice was crisp, professional, terrifying in its certainty. My son needs a wife for business purposes. 1-year contract, complete discretion, full medical coverage for your mother, plus compensation that would set you up for life. Aaliyah's hand shook. I don't understand. It's an arranged marriage, Miss Brooks. Legal but temporary. No intimacy required. Just public appearances and social functions. The hospital hallway stretched empty before her. Machines beeping their electronic lullabies. Lives hanging in balance while she stood at the crossroads of her own. How much? The words escaped before she could stop them. Enough to save your mother and secure your future. The only question is whether you're brave enough to say yes. The contract was simple. 1 year of marriage, complete discretion, enough money to save her mother's life. What they didn't mention was the groom's one shocking requirement that would change everything. 2 strangers stood at opposite ends of a luxury penthouse, both virgins to heartbreak in completely different ways. The Malibu mansion stretched before Aaliyah like something from a magazine she'd never be able to afford. Ocean waves crashed against cliffs below, while seagulls circled overhead, their cries mixing with the sound of her racing heart. Roman Whitaker stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, his back to her. Even in silhouette, she could see the breadth of his shoulders beneath the perfectly tailored jacket. When he turned, blue eyes met hers across the marble expanse, and something electric shot through the space between them. "You're smaller than I expected," he said, then immediately frowned. "I am sorry. That came out wrong." Aaliyah lifted her chin, fighting the urge to smooth her simple black dress. "And you're exactly what I expected. Rich, powerful, used to getting your way." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Fair enough." The wedding coordinator bustled between them, her clipboard thick with details neither of them cared about. "The ceremony will be intimate. Just immediate family and essential witnesses. The photographers will capture everything for the press release." Roman's jaw tightened. "No photographers during the actual ceremony." "But sir, the board insisted." "No, cameras." His voice carried the authority of a man who'd built an empire from nothing. "This is still sacred, even if it's complicated." Aaliyah studied his profile, surprised by the conviction in his voice. She'd expected a cold businessman, not someone who still believed in the holiness of marriage vows. The contract signing felt surreal. Her name next to his on legal documents that would bind them for 12 months. Her hand trembled as she signed, and Roman noticed. "Are you okay?" His voice was gentler now, concerned. "Just thinking about how we got here," she said. 2 strangers about to promise forever to each other. Have you ever met someone and instantly felt like they could see straight through you? That terrifying recognition? Tell me about it. Roman set down his pen and looked at her directly. "Can I tell you something that might make this easier?" She nodded. "I've never done this before either. Marriage, I mean. I've never even." He paused, color rising in his cheeks. "This is all new territory for me too." The admission hung between them, vulnerable and raw. Aaliyah felt something shift in her chest, a softening she hadn't expected. "You mean you've never been married?" she said carefully. "I mean, I've never been with a woman. Not like that." His eyes met hers steadily. "I've been waiting for, I don't know, something real, I guess." Thunder rolled across the Pacific, dark clouds gathering on the horizon. The wedding coordinator glanced nervously at the weather reports on her phone. "Storms coming in faster than expected," she muttered. As thunder rolled across the Pacific, Roman made a confession that left Aaliyah speechless. "I've never touched a woman. This marriage, it's as foreign to me as it is to you." The power went out during their first night as husband and wife, but in the darkness, they finally saw each other clearly. Lightning split the sky as Roman carried Aaliyah over the threshold of the master suite. The gesture was traditional, expected, but the way his arms tightened around her felt real. "Dangerous. You can put me down now," she whispered, but neither of them moved. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. The mansion plunged into darkness just as the full force of the Pacific storm hit the coastline. "Emergency candles are in the nightstand," Roman said, setting her gently on her feet. Aaliyah's hands shook as she fumbled for matches. The first flame cast dancing shadows across the bedroom walls, transforming the space into something intimate and wild. Roman had loosened his tie, the first button of his shirt undone, as she found herself staring at the strong column of his throat. "I should change," she said, gesturing toward her wedding dress. "I'll wait outside." Roman. His name felt strange on her lips, too familiar for strangers, too distant for husband and wife. "You don't have to hide from me. We're married now." He turned slowly, candlelight catching the sharp angles of his face. "Are we? Really? This feels like playing dress-up." Rain hammered against the windows with increasing fury. Aaliyah reached for the zipper of her dress, then paused when she realized Roman was watching. Not with hunger, but with something deeper. Reverence. "You're beautiful," he said quietly. "But you know that." "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. "I don't know that. The last man who was supposed to love me made sure I forgot." Roman stepped closer, drawn by the pain in her voice. "What did he do to you?" Sometimes it takes darkness to see the light in someone else. When did a difficult moment bring you closer to someone unexpected? The storm outside seemed to echo the turbulence inside her. "Marcus said he loved me, said he wanted to marry me. But when I told him I was waiting for my wedding night," she swallowed hard. "He found someone who wouldn't make him wait. He was a fool." Was he? Maybe I'm the fool for thinking my virginity means anything in today's world. Roman moved closer until she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "It means everything. It means you chose to save something precious for the person who deserved it. And did I choose the right person?" His hand lifted toward her face, hovering inches from her cheek. "I don't know, but I promise you this. If you give me that gift, I'll treasure it. I'll treasure you." The zipper of her dress whispered down as Roman's fingers replaced hers. Not rushing, not demanding, asking permission with every touch. "Is this okay?" He breathed against her ear. "Yes," she whispered back, surprised by how much she meant it. The dress pulled around her feet like spilled moonlight. Roman's sharp intake of breath made her skin flush with heat despite the storm's chill. "God, Aaliyah." His voice was rough with restraint. "You're perfect." His shirt joined her dress on the floor. The candlelight revealed the muscled chest she'd only imagined, the strength that came from years of disciplined workouts and iron self-control. When his lips finally met hers, it was soft at first, tentative. Then hunger took over, and they were lost in each other, tongues dancing, hands exploring new territory with desperate need. Just as their lips were about to meet for the first time, headlights blazed through the window and a car door slammed. Someone was coming. Someone who would destroy this fragile moment before it could bloom. Angelica Price had graced magazine covers worldwide, but nothing prepared her for the sight of Roman Whitaker choosing a nurse over a supermodel. The front door slammed open with enough force to rattle the mansion's foundation. Stiletto heels clicked across marble floors like gunshots, each step echoing Roman and Aaliyah's worst fears. "Roman!" Angelica's voice cut through the storm like a blade. "I know you're here." Aaliyah scrambled for her robe, heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. Roman was already pulling on his shirt, jaw set in grim determination. "Stay here," he said. Like hell. Aaliyah tied the robe tight and followed him down the sweeping staircase. Angelica Price stood in the foyer like an avenging angel, her platinum hair whipped by storm winds, designer dress clinging to her supermodel frame. Camera flashes exploded behind her. Paparazzi she'd brought like weapons to a war. "Is this her?" Angelica's green eyes raked over Aaliyah with undisguised contempt. "The little nurse who thinks she can play in our world." Roman stepped in front of Aaliyah, his body a shield. "Get out, Angelica." "Oh, I don't think so." Angelica's smile was sharp as broken glass. "See, I did some digging on your new wife. Very interesting story, Roman. Very sad." The cameras kept flashing, capturing every moment of Aaliyah's humiliation. She felt exposed, cheap, like a fraud caught in costume jewelry. Tell him about Chicago, Angelica purred. Tell him about Marcus. Tell him why your fiancé really left you at the altar. Aaliyah's world tilted. How could she know about Marcus? About the private shame that had driven her from Chicago to Atlanta, from dreams of love to this desperate arrangement? Tell him how you begged Marcus to stay, how you offered him everything, your body, your pride, your future, and he still walked away. That's enough. Roman's voice was deadly quiet. But Angelica wasn't finished. She's using you, Roman, just like every other woman who's tried to trap you. The only difference is this one's smart enough to play hard to get. Have you ever had someone from your past try to sabotage your future happiness? How did you handle the drama? The words hit Aaliyah like physical blows. Every insecurity, every moment of self-doubt Marcus had planted in her mind came flooding back. She was nobody special. She was a charity case. You're wrong. Roman's voice cut through her spiral of shame. He turned to face Aaliyah, his blue eyes blazing with something she'd never seen directed at her before. Protection, possession, choice. I don't care about Chicago. I don't care about Marcus. I don't care about any of it. He reached for her hand, his fingers warm and strong around hers. I care about the woman who's brave enough to marry a stranger to save her mother. I care about the woman who's been faithful to her values when the world told her they didn't matter. Angelica's perfect face twisted with rage. You're choosing her over me? Over us. There was never an us, Angelica. There was you wanting something I couldn't give, and me being too polite to say no clearly enough. The storm outside seemed to pause, as if nature itself was waiting for what came next. Roman turned to the cameras, his CEO persona snapping into place like armor. You want a story? Here's your story. I married Aaliyah Brooks because she's everything I've been looking for my entire life. Smart, strong, loyal, real. Everything you, he looked pointedly at Angelica, could never be. Aaliyah felt something shift inside her chest, a door opening to possibilities she'd been too afraid to imagine. But then Angelica played her final card. Check your phone, darling. The story's already gone live. Desperate nurse traps virgin CEO in marriage scam. Complete with photos from Chicago. Your husband deserves to know exactly who he married. Aaliyah ran into the storm, leaving Roman shouting her name into the wind. But as she reached the cliff's edge, her phone buzzed with a text that changed everything. The cancer spread. Come home now. He followed her barefoot into the hurricane. Not as a CEO protecting his investment, but as a man chasing the only woman who'd ever made him feel alive. Roman's feet hit the wet cliffs behind Aaliyah, rain cutting through his dress shirt like ice. The Pacific winds nearly knocked him sideways, but he kept running toward the figure silhouetted against the lightning. Aaliyah, his voice was swallowed by thunder. Stop! She spun around at the cliff's edge, phone clutched in her shaking hand. Tears mixed with rainwater on her cheeks. Go back inside, Roman. Back to your safe world, where people like me don't exist. What are you talking about? The text. She held up her phone. My mother. The cancer spread. She's dying. And I'm here playing house with a stranger instead of being where I belong. Roman stepped closer, his heart hammering against his ribs. One wrong move, and she could slip on the wet rocks. One gust of wind could steal her from him forever. Then we'll go to her. Right now. Aaliyah laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. We? There is no we, Roman. There's you, and your billion-dollar company, and your perfect life. And then there's me, broke, desperate, foolish enough to think I could fit into your world. You don't fit into my world. His words hit her like a slap. You make it better. You make it real. Lightning illuminated her face, showing him the exact moment her defenses cracked. Angelica was right. I'm nobody special. I'm just a girl who couldn't keep her own fiancé interested. Would you run into a storm for someone you barely knew? What does it take for you to believe someone's love is real? Roman closed the distance between them in 2 strides. His hands cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Marcus was an idiot. Angelica is poison. And you, his thumb brushed away a tear. You're the strongest person I've ever met. I'm not strong. I am scared. Strong people get scared too. They just don't let it stop them from doing what's right. The ocean crashed below them, wild and dangerous. But Roman only saw Aaliyah, soaked, shivering, beautiful in her vulnerability. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. I don't know how to be married. I don't know how to trust someone who is everything when I have nothing. I don't know either. His forehead touched hers, but I know I don't want to learn with anyone else. His lips found hers in the storm, desperate and hungry. She melted into his arms, her body fitting against his like they were made for this moment. Heat exploded between them despite the cold rain, her hands fisting in his wet shirt. Is this real? She breathed against his mouth. More real than anything I've ever felt. Her phone rang again. The hospital. Reality crashed back like the wave below. As Roman's lips crashed onto hers with desperate hunger, Aaliyah melted into his arms until her phone rang again. The hospital. Her mother had hours, not days. In a sterile Atlanta hospital room, a dying woman gave her blessing to a love that hadn't even begun to bloom. The private jet touched down in Atlanta at 4 a.m. Roman had made calls during the flight, arranging the best doctors, the finest care, pulling strings he didn't know he had. But as they rushed through the hospital corridors, Aaliyah's hand in his, he knew money couldn't fix everything. Room 314, the nurse directed them. Aaliyah's mother looked smaller than the photos Roman had seen. The cancer had stolen her weight, her color, but not the sharp intelligence in her eyes as they fixed on Roman. So you're the man who married my daughter for business. Her voice was weak, but steady. Yes, ma'am. Roman didn't flinch from the truth. And now you're here, in a hospital at 4 a.m. for business. Roman looked at Aaliyah, who was holding her mother's free hand, tears streaming down her face. No, ma'am. I'm here because your daughter is the best person I've ever met, and I couldn't let her face this alone. Mrs. Brooks studied him for a long moment. Sit down, son. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of doctors, consultations, and difficult decisions. Roman watched Aaliyah translate medical terms for her mother, advocate fiercely for better care, coordinate with siblings who called from across the country. She was magnificent, tired, scared, but never backing down when her mother's life was on the line. The experimental treatment could buy her time, Dr. Martinez explained, but it's expensive. Insurance won't cover it. Do it, Roman said immediately. Aaliyah's head snapped up. Roman, no, this isn't your responsibility. Yes, it is. His eyes met hers across the bed. She's family now. That's what marriage means. Have you ever had a family member see something in your relationship that you couldn't see yourself? Tell me about that wisdom. Later, in the hospital chapel, Aaliyah sat beside Roman on a wooden pew. You didn't sign up for this, did not? His shoulder pressed against hers. For better or worse, sickness and health. We said those words yesterday, but we didn't mean them. Roman turned to face her. I meant every word. Something shifted in Aaliyah's chest. The walls she'd built around her heart started to crack. Why are you doing this? Because you matter. Your mother matters. Your family matters. He took her hand, and somewhere between the contract signing and watching you fight for her life, this stopped being about business. What's it about now? You tell me. She looked at their joined hands. His were soft from boardrooms and luxury, hers rough from nursing and hard work, but they fit together perfectly. I'm scared to want this, she whispered. Want what? You. Us. Whatever this is becoming. Roman's free hand tilted her chin up. Then don't want it. Just let it happen. The kiss was different this time. Soft, questioning, full of possibilities neither had dared to imagine. When they broke apart, Aaliyah's mother was watching from the chapel doorway, supported by a nurse. That, she said with a weak smile, looked like the real thing. As her mother squeezed their joined hands, she whispered, "This one's different, baby. But are you brave enough to let him prove it?" Before Aaliyah could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the ICU. She buried her mother on a Tuesday and discovered what Roman Whitaker was really made of on a Wednesday. The Atlanta cemetery was packed with people Aaliyah had forgotten existed. Co-workers from 3 different hospitals, neighbors from the old apartment, church members who'd watched her grow up. all of them drawn by the news of her sudden marriage to the famous CEO. Roman stood beside her at the graveside, his black suit simple and respectful. No designer labels, no flashy accessories. He looked like any other mourner paying his respects. "She was proud of you," Aaliyah's Aunt Sarah whispered. "Called me yesterday morning, said you'd found a good man." Aaliyah watched dirt fall onto the casket and felt something break inside her chest. Her mother would never meet her grandchildren, never see if this crazy marriage turned into something real, never give her advice about love and heartbreak and choosing the right partner. The crowd began to thin as people headed back to their lives. Roman stayed close, but didn't hover, letting her grieve without trying to fix or manage her pain. "You ready to go?" he asked gently. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Back at her small Atlanta apartment, everything looked different. The couch where her mother had napped during chemo treatments. The kitchen table where they'd done crossword puzzles together. The photos on the mantle that would never be updated with new memories. Sometimes we find love in our darkest moments. Have you ever discovered someone's true character during your worst times? Roman moved through the small space like he belonged there. No judgment about the secondhand furniture or the water stain on the ceiling. He made coffee without asking where anything was kept, somehow finding the right mugs and sugar. "You don't have to stay," Aaliyah said from the couch. "I know you have company business to handle. The company can wait." "Can it?" "We both know this marriage is about the IPO, about making you look stable and responsible." She pulled a throw pillow against her chest. "Mission accomplished. You were the perfect, devoted husband at the funeral." Very touching performance. Roman set down his coffee cup and moved to sit beside her. "Is that what you think this is? A performance? Isn't it?" "Look at me, Aaliyah." She turned to face him, seeing something in his blue eyes she couldn't name. "I've never taken a week off work. Not in 15 years. But I've been in Atlanta for 4 days, and I haven't checked my email once." His hand covered hers. "Does that sound like business to you? Then what is it?" "It's a man falling for his wife, even though he never planned to, even though it scares the hell out of him." The words hung between them, dangerous and true. Aaliyah felt tears threaten again, but these were different. Not grief, something else entirely. "Roman, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know." But she was already moving, closing the space between them on the couch. Her hands framed his face, her thumbs tracing the sharp line of his cheekbones. "I need you," she whispered. "Not forever, not promises, just tonight." His resistance crumbled. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Their first time was gentle, reverent, everything she'd dreamed intimacy could be. Roman worshipped her body like something sacred, taking his time despite their mutual desperation. When he moved inside her, she felt complete for the first time in her life. Afterward, they lay tangled together on her narrow bed, skin cooling in the Atlanta heat. "What happens now?" she asked against his chest. "Now we go back to New York, back to reality. And then..." Roman's arms tightened around her. "Then we figure out if what we found in the dark can survive in the light." Wrapped in Roman's arms afterward, Aaliyah felt something she'd never experienced, complete safety. But the vibrating phone on the nightstand carried news that would test whether their love could survive the real world. New York City didn't care about their grief or their growing love. Wall Street wanted its arranged marriage to perform, and the cameras were rolling. The penthouse felt different when they returned. Bigger, colder, filled with expensive things that suddenly seemed meaningless. Aaliyah stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching Manhattan stretch endlessly below while Roman fielded angry calls from his board. "The stock dropped 12 points while you were gone," Harrison Chin's voice carried across the room. "Investors are nervous about your disappearance." "My wife's mother died," Roman said coldly. "I understand that. But business doesn't stop for personal tragedy." Aaliyah turned from the window, watching Roman's jaw clench. The gentle man who'd held her through grief was transforming back into the corporate warrior, and she felt the distance growing between them. "I need you both at the investor lunch tomorrow," Chin continued. "Full media coverage. Show them the happy couple." After Roman hung up, silence stretched between them like a bridge neither wanted to cross. "This is your world," Aaliyah said quietly. Board meetings and investor lunches and performing our marriage for strangers. It doesn't have to be, doesn't it? They own you, Roman. They own this marriage. They own me. Roman crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. Nobody owns you. But even as he kissed her, Aaliyah could feel the city pressing in around them. The weight of expectations, contracts, billion-dollar decisions that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with profit. The investor lunch was a nightmare. Photographers capturing every moment, reporters asking invasive questions about their whirlwind romance. Aaliyah smiled and played her part, but inside she was drowning. How do you stay authentic when everyone's watching? Have you ever felt like your relationship was on display for judgment? Mrs. Whitaker, how does it feel to go from ICU nurse to CEO's wife overnight? Amazing, she lied smoothly. Roman makes everything feel like a fairy tale. Roman's hand tightened on hers under the table. Later, in the car back to the penthouse, the silence was deafening. I hated that, Aaliyah said finally. I know. They looked at me like I was some kind of gold digger who trapped you. They're idiots. Are they? Maybe they see something we don't want to admit. Roman pulled the car over, ignoring the honking horns behind them. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe Angelica was right. Maybe I am using you. For my mother's medical bills, for a lifestyle I could never afford, for security I've never had. And what am I using you for? Your IPO, your image, your board's approval. They stared at each other across the car's leather interior, both recognizing the truth in her words. So what do we do? Roman asked. Before she could answer, his phone exploded with notifications. Social media alerts, news updates, stock reports. Their private conversation in the restaurant had been recorded, their body language analyzed, their marriage dissected by strangers with opinions and agendas. We survive, Aaliyah said finally. We play the game until the contract expires. Then we go back to our real lives. But as they rode the elevator up to the penthouse, both of them knew it was already too late for that. Some things, once felt, couldn't be unfelt. Some connections, once made, couldn't be severed by contracts or common sense. The board's ultimatum was brutal. Consummate the marriage publicly through a reality show or lose everything. Roman's answer shocked them all. But would Aaliyah agree to bare their most intimate moments for the world? They want a show? Roman Whitaker would give them a show, one that would either make them millions or destroy them both. The television executives filled the penthouse conference room like vultures circling prey. Cameras, contracts, and dollar signs dancing in their eyes as they pitched the concept that would change everything. CEO and the Nurse, a love story. Producer Jennifer Walsh announced with theatrical flair. 24/7 access to your lives. The intimate moments, the conflicts, the passion. America loves an underdog romance. Aaliyah felt sick. You want to film us in our bedroom? We want to film your journey. The real stuff. The fights, the makeups, the moments when you forget cameras are there. Roman leaned back in his chair, every inch the calculating businessman. What's the pay structure? $50 million for the season, plus back-end profits, plus endorsement deals that could triple that number. The numbers made Aaliyah's head spin. More money than she'd see in 10 lifetimes. Enough to start a foundation in her mother's name, to help other families facing impossible medical bills. There's a catch, Walsh continued. The board wants proof this marriage is real. That means showing physical intimacy. Not pornography, but genuine connection. Passion. Love. You want us to have sex on camera? Aaliyah said bluntly. We want to document a relationship. What happens naturally between a husband and wife. Roman's hand found hers under the table, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. Give us a moment. After the executives left, they stood alone in the conference room, surrounded by contracts and proposals that could make them rich beyond imagination. $50 million, Aaliyah whispered. Is that a yes? She turned to study his face. What do you want to do? I want to tell them all to go to hell. I want to take you somewhere they can't find us and figure out what this is without an audience. But we both know that's not realistic. The board won't back down. The media attention isn't going away. Maybe if we control the narrative, we control our story. Would you put your most private moments on television for love and money? Where do you draw the line on privacy? Aaliyah walked to the windows, looking out at the city that had become her stage. What if they film us and we're terrible together? What if America sees what I see, that I don't belong in your world? Roman moved behind her, his reflection joining hers in the glass. What if they see what I see, that you're exactly where you belong? His arms circled her waist, pulling her back against his chest. Even through their clothes, she could feel the heat of his body, the solid strength that had become her anchor. There would be rules, she said. Boundaries. I won't perform intimacy for ratings. What would you perform it for? She turned in his arms, seeing something in his eyes that made her breath catch. What are you asking me? I'm asking if this is still just business for you. If what happened in Atlanta was grief and loneliness, or something else. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him down until their foreheads touched. You want honesty? Always. It stopped being business the moment you followed me into that storm. Their kiss was desperate, hungry, full of weeks of held-back emotion. Roman's hands tangled in her hair while she pressed closer, needing to feel every inch of him against her. The cameras, she gasped against his mouth. They're not rolling yet, but they will be. Tomorrow. Next week. Watching everything we do. Roman's hands framed her face. Then let's give them something worth watching. Aaliyah signed a reality show contract with one condition that left the producers speechless. She would control when and how their intimacy was shown. But first, she had a secret to tell Roman that would change everything. Some secrets are kept to protect others, but this one could destroy the very foundation their marriage was built on. The cameras wouldn't start rolling for another week, but Roman could already feel them watching. Every conversation measured, every touch calculated for an audience they hadn't met yet. He paced the penthouse rooftop garden while Aaliyah sat at the small dinner table, her untouched wine glass catching the city lights below. You've been quiet since we signed, he said, settling into the chair across from her. Have I? Talk to me. What's going on in that head of yours? Aaliyah's fingers traced the rim of her glass, her eyes fixed on the Manhattan skyline. There's something I need to tell you before the cameras start. Something about why I really agreed to this marriage. Roman's stomach clenched. Okay, the money for my mother's treatment? It wasn't just about the medical bills. She finally met his eyes. Marcus left me with debts. Credit cards he'd maxed out in both our names. When I found out, I was already too proud to tell anyone. Too ashamed. How much? 60,000. On top of everything else. Her laugh was bitter. I wasn't just a desperate daughter. I was a financial disaster looking for a rescue. Roman reached across the table, covering her hand with his. Why didn't you tell me? Because you married me thinking I was honorable, noble, a woman sacrificing for her family. Tears gathered in her eyes. But really, I was just another broke girl who saw a rich man and grabbed him. Is there ever a right time to reveal painful secrets? How do you know when someone can handle your whole truth? Is that what you think? Roman's voice was gentle. That I married you for your nobility? Didn't you? He stood, pulling her to her feet and into his arms. I married you because my board demanded it. But I fell for you because you made me laugh during the worst week of your life. Because you fought for your mother like a warrior. Because you see through all my expensive suits to who I really am underneath. And who are you underneath? A man who's been lonely his entire life, waiting for someone real to love him. Someone like you. His lips found hers in the warm evening air, soft at first, then deeper as she melted against him. The kiss tasted like wine and possibilities, like secrets shared and barriers broken. The debt doesn't matter, he murmured against her mouth. None of it matters. It does to me. Then we'll pay it off together, as partners. Aaliyah pulled back to study his face. You mean that? I mean everything I say to you. His hands moved to the zipper of her dress, sliding it down with careful reverence. The silk pooled around her feet, leaving her standing in moonlight and lace that made Roman's breath catch. You're perfect, he whispered. I'm broke and damaged and carrying baggage you never signed up for. You're mine. The possessiveness in his voice sent heat racing through her blood. She reached for his shirt, her fingers making quick work of the buttons until she could press her palms against the hard planes of his chest. They made love on the outdoor couch under the stars, New York glittering around them like scattered diamonds. Roman's touch was patient, worshipful, mapping every curve and hollow until Aaliyah was trembling beneath him. "I love you," he said as he moved inside her. "Roman, I know it's crazy. I know it's fast, but I love you, Aaliyah." She pulled his face down to hers, pouring her answer into a kiss that left them both breathless. When they finally lay tangled together afterward, the city humming below, Roman traced the thin scar along her shoulder blade. "What's this from?" Aaliyah tensed. "An accident. When I was younger." "What kind of accident?" She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. "Then, my stepfather, when he drank too much." Roman's entire body went rigid. "He hit you. Just once. My mother left him the next day." She turned to face him. "It's why I became a nurse. Why I needed to help people who couldn't help themselves." As Roman traced the scar on her shoulder, evidence of her secret, he whispered words that made her heart stop. "I love every broken piece of you." But the cameras had been rolling the entire time. Their most private moment became the world's most watched video overnight. But not everyone was cheering for their love story. Aaliyah woke to Roman's phone buzzing like an angry hornet. Sunlight streamed through the penthouse windows as notifications exploded across social media, each one carrying their faces, their story, their most intimate confession. "What's happening?" she mumbled against his chest. Roman's jaw was tight as he scrolled through his phone. "Someone recorded last night." "What do you mean recorded?" He turned the screen toward her. The video was grainy, shot from a distance, but clear enough. Her dress falling away, his hands on her skin. Their whispered confessions of love echoing across the internet. "Oh God." Aaliyah sat up, pulling the sheet around her. "How was this possible?" "The cameras don't start until next week." Paparazzi, long-range lens from another building. The video had already been viewed 12 million times. The comment section was a war zone of opinions about their relationship, her motives, his choices. She's using him for money, and he's too blind to see it. This is what real love looks like. Fight me. Rich white boy falls for gold-digging nurse. Tale as old as time. That scar on her back tells a story. This girl's been through hell. Roman's phone rang. "Harrison, Chun. The board is an emergency session." Chen's voice was sharp. "This video changes everything." "Changes what?" "Public opinion is split 50-50. Half the country thinks you're an inspiration. Half thinks you're a fool. The stock price is jumping around like a pinball. When the whole world has an opinion about your love life, how do you stay true to your heart? Share your thoughts on public relationships." Aaliyah wrapped Roman's shirt around herself and walked to the kitchen, needing space to think. The comments kept coming, strangers dissecting their relationship like they had the right to judge. But some of the messages were different. "My husband and I were arranged marriage too. 30 years later, still in love. Give him a chance. Anyone who survived abuse recognizes strength. That girl is a survivor." He looks at her like she hung the moon. "That's not fake." Roman found her at the kitchen counter, laptop open, reading every comment. "Don't do that to yourself," he said. "They're not all bad. Some people get it. Some people are idiots with internet access. Their opinions don't matter. Don't they?" This whole marriage was about public perception, about making you look stable and responsible. She turned to face him. "Well, congratulations. Half the world thinks you're a romantic hero, and half thinks you're a naive fool." Roman pulled her into his arms, his back blocking her view of the laptop screen. "I know which half is right." "Which half?" "The half that sees a man who found something worth fighting for." His kiss was fierce, claiming, designed to drive away doubt and replace it with certainty. Aaliyah melted into him, her hands fisting in his hair as he lifted her onto the counter. "They're going to keep watching," she gasped against his mouth. "Let them watch. They're going to judge everything we do. Then let's give them something worth judging." The phone call came at midnight. Roman's biggest rival had made an offer to buy out the board members, but only if Aaliyah disappeared from Roman's life forever. The amount would solve every problem she'd ever had. She had married him for money once. Now someone was offering her millions to leave him, and this time, it was her choice to make. The envelope arrived by private courier at 6 a.m., thick and official with law firm letterhead. Aaliyah signed for it while Roman showered, her hands shaking as she read the contents. Ms. Brooks Whitaker, our client, Titan Industries, is prepared to offer you $50 million to quietly dissolve your marriage to Roman Whitaker within 30 days. This offer includes a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement and relocation assistance to any city of your choosing. $50 million, more money than she'd ever dreamed of having. Enough to disappear, start over, become anyone she wanted to be. Roman found her at the dining table, the contract spread before her like evidence of a crime. What's that? She slid the papers across to him, watching his face change as he read. His knuckles went white around the edges of the contract. Marcus Titan, Roman's voice was deadly quiet. My biggest competitor. You know him? We've been destroying each other's deals for 10 years. This is his final play. Roman looked up at her. What are you going to do? The question hung between them like a blade. Aaliyah studied the man she'd married, the stranger who'd become her anchor, the CEO who'd followed her into a storm. What do you think I should do? I think, Roman said carefully, that $50 million could give you a life I never could. No cameras, no board meetings, no performing for investors. Just you, free to choose whatever makes you happy. What's the difference between love and loyalty? Would you walk away from millions for love? Or is that just fantasy? Is that what you want? For me to take the money and go? Roman's blue eyes held hers steadily. I want you to be happy, even if that happiness doesn't include me. Aaliyah picked up the contract, feeling the weight of its implications. Freedom, security, a chance to build something entirely her own. Everything she thought she wanted before she met Roman Whitaker. You know what's funny? She said, setting the papers aside. 6 months ago, this would have been an easy decision. Take the money, disappear, start over somewhere nobody knew my story. And now I know that money can't, by the way you look at me. Like I'm valuable exactly as I am. Like I'm worth following into hurricanes and board meetings and reality TV contracts. She stood, moving around the table to straddle his lap, her hands framing his face. Now I know that some things are worth more than security, worth more than money, worth more than the easy choice. Aaliyah, I'm not going anywhere, Roman. Not for 50 million, not for 50 billion. You're stuck with me. His arms crushed her against him, his face buried in her neck. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Their lovemaking was desperate, claiming, full of promises neither wanted to speak aloud. Roman's hands mapped every inch of her skin like he was memorizing her, while Aaliyah poured everything she couldn't say into the way she moved against him. Later, as they lay tangled in sheets and satisfaction, Aaliyah's phone buzzed with a text from her doctor. What is it? Roman asked, noticing her sharp intake of breath. She turned the screen toward him, her face glowing with shocked joy. Aaliyah's response to the buyout offer made headlines worldwide, but her final words left Roman speechless. I have something to tell you that changes everything. I'm pregnant. The Virgin CEO, who once guarded his heart like a fortress, now faced his greatest vulnerability, becoming a father with the woman who taught him to love. The doctor's office felt surreal. Aaliyah lay on the examination table, gel cold on her stomach, while Roman held her hand and stared at the ultrasound screen like it held the secrets of the universe. There's your baby, Dr. Martinez pointed to a tiny flicker on the monitor. About 8 weeks along. Perfectly healthy. Roman's grip on her hand tightened. 8 weeks. That means Atlanta, Aaliyah whispered. The night after the funeral, their first time together had created this. A life neither had planned, but both already wanted with fierce intensity. The reality show, the board pressure, the media circus suddenly seemed trivial compared to the miracle growing inside her. The heart rate is strong, the doctor continued. Everything looks exactly as it should. Roman's free hand pressed against his eyes, and Aaliyah realized he was crying. Silent tears of joy and terror an overwhelming love for a child he'd just discovered existed. "Hey," she said softly. "You okay? I'm going to be a father." His voice cracked on the words. "I don't know how to be a father. Good thing you have about 7 months to figure it out." The drive home was quiet, both of them processing the magnitude of what had changed. They weren't just playing house anymore, weren't just figuring out a temporary arrangement. They were about to become a family. How does becoming a parent change a relationship? What would you do if love and business success conflicted? The reality show, Roman said as they walked into the penthouse. "We can't do it now." "Why not?" "Because I'm not exposing our child to that circus. I won't have cameras documenting your pregnancy, judging how we prepare for parenthood." Aaliyah sank into the couch, her hand instinctively moving to her still flat stomach. "The board will be furious. The contract penalties alone could bankrupt us. Then we'll be broke together." She looked at him, really looked. The CEO mask was gone, replaced by something raw and protective and absolutely certain. "You'd give up everything? The company, the IPO, the billions? For you? For our baby?" Roman sat beside her, pulling her into his arms. "Without hesitation. But your life's work. My life's work is loving you. Everything else is just business." That night, they made love with new reverence, Roman's hands gentle on her body, as if she were made of spun glass. Every touch was a promise. Every kiss a vow to protect what they'd created together. "I love you," she whispered against his skin. "I love you both," he replied, his palms spreading over her stomach where their child grew. The next morning brought chaos. Board members demanding explanations. Reality show producers threatening lawsuits. Stock prices fluctuating with every news report about their decision. Roman faced it all with calm certainty, Aaliyah at his side as they held their first press conference as expectant parents. "The reality show is canceled," he announced to the room full of reporters. "My wife and child's privacy is not for sale at any price." "What about the IPO?" someone shouted. "What about it? Apex Fitness will succeed or fail based on our products and vision, not on whether the public approves of my marriage." As they painted the nursery together, Roman made a confession that stopped Aaliyah's brush mid-stroke. "I want to walk away from it all. The company, the money, everything. Would you build a simple life with me?" 1 year after an arranged marriage brought them together, Roman and Aaliyah Whitaker proved that sometimes the best love stories begin with the most impossible circumstances. The nursery was perfect. Soft yellow walls covered with hand-painted stars, a rocking chair positioned to catch the morning light, and a crib that Roman had assembled 3 times because he wanted everything to be exactly right. Aaliyah stood in the doorway at 38 weeks pregnant, watching her husband adjust the mobile for the 100th time. He'd traded his designer suits for jeans and t-shirts, his Wall Street office for a home-based consulting firm that gave him flexibility to be present for every doctor's appointment, every midnight craving, every moment of this journey. "It's perfect, Roman." The angle's still wrong on the stars above the changing table. "The baby won't care about angles." He turned, his face lighting up at the sight of her rounded belly. She might be particular about star alignment, just like her mother. Call it father's intuition. Aaliyah moved into his arms, fitting against him despite her size. The company had survived the IPO without the reality show, smaller than originally projected, but stable and growing. The board had eventually forgiven him, especially when the authentic love story angle drove even more positive publicity than stage television would have provided. "Any regrets?" she asked against his chest. "About what?" "Giving up billions for this life." Roman's hands cradled her face, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones. "I didn't give up billions. I traded fake money for real wealth." "So what would you choose? An empire built on compromise or a kingdom built on love? Would you risk everything for someone who saw your worth before you believed it yourself?" Their daughter was born on a Tuesday at dawn, arriving fast and healthy after only 6 hours of labor. Roman cut the cord with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face as he held their child for the first time. "She's perfect," he whispered, "just like her daddy." Aaliyah murmured, exhausted but radiant. They named her Grace after Aaliyah's mother, and she had Roman's blue eyes and Aaliyah's stubborn chin. The first photo Roman posted to social media broke the internet, not because of his fame or fortune, but because of the raw joy on both their faces. 3 months later, Roman surprised Aaliyah with adoption papers for the pediatric wing of Atlanta General, renamed the Grace Brooks Memorial Children's Hospital. "You can't keep throwing money at my problems," she said, but she was crying as she signed the documents. "They're not your problems anymore. They're our dreams." The first anniversary of their wedding found them back in Malibu, but this time they'd rented the house as a family vacation, not a business arrangement. Grace slept peacefully in her carrier while Roman and Aaliyah watched the sunset from the same cliffs where he'd chased her into a storm. "Do you think we would have found each other without the arrangement?" Aaliyah asked. "Eventually. Some connections are too strong for coincidence. Even if I'd been just another nurse and you'd been just another patient. Especially then, you would have bossed me around until I fell in love with you." She laughed, the sound carried away by the Pacific wind. "And you would have charmed me with your terrible patient behavior until I admitted you were worth the trouble." Roman pulled her closer, their daughter sleeping between them as the sun painted the sky in shades of hope and promise. "So, what happens next?" Aaliyah asked. "Next, we raise our daughter to be strong and kind and brave enough to trust love when it finds her. And after that, we live happily ever after, just like you deserve." If this story touched your heart, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that make you feel, think, and maybe even heal a little. Tell me in the comments what aspect of their journey resonated most with you. And remember, the most powerful love doesn't rescue you from your life. It recognizes the strength that's been there all along.